So Tom Hyde, distinguished composer, but also a regular member of the congregation. I'm used to looking out and seeing you there Sunday by Sunday. So I'm thinking that as a member of the congregation, you probably have a particular association with this season of Advent. I'm just wondering what Advent means to you.
Frustration, actually, for many of the reasons that anyone who tries to be aware that Advent's happening at all, because the world is already at Christmas. And it's often a very fraught time, buying presents for in-laws and things like that. And so it's very hard not to be swept up with what's going on around you. So I associate Advent with trying desperately to fight for a space of quietness and stillness and expectation. But it's a lovely season. It's my favourite season of the year. And my heart, I have to confess, droops a little as we get to Christmas itself. I enjoy Advent more. I also actually associate it in a very personal way with work, actually. I normally get to the beginning of October or November and suddenly realize how little I've done over the year. And I feel a huge sway of guilt comes upon me. And I think, well, I must get certain things done, pieces written or things like that, done before the new year. So it's often a period when I actually pull things together and desperately try to be productive. So I associate it with getting things done, but also a certain frustration.
Now you've worked with Stevie and the choir before.
Yes.
But this collaboration's just a little bit different.
Very different, because it'll involve dance, which is something that I've not worked with before, and I'm very excited about that. And just the mechanics of how we put music with dance is going to be an interesting thing, and how they work together. But also using the choir and the organ and trying to write something that obviously has a Christian element to these O Antiphons, but somehow takes in a lot of other musical forms and artistic forms, to try and make a piece that speaks in its widest sense.
Best and worst case scenarios for this project, then?
Well, I suppose the worst case scenario would be that it's just an awful mess. I mean, that's fear that every composer has, that it just doesn't work. I suppose the other fear would be that it's not anything more than the sum of its parts. You hope with a collaborative project that all of the parts come together and you've created something that all those ingredients have sort of blended in some way. Or if there's been friction, that it's been a kind of creative friction. So those would be the fears. The hopes is that we produce something, well, it sounds dull to say, but it's good, that in some way engages people, maybe a little unusual from what they're expecting. But in some ways we've got a blank canvas, because when I've written things like a violin sonata or a string quartet, people often have an idea of what that is, even if you're going to do something very different with the medium. They know a Mozart string quartet or an Elgar violin sonata. Here, there's not actually very many sets of O Antiphons as a collection. And also, certainly not ones the way we're doing it, with dance and all of these elements. So we've kind of got a blank canvas, so we can make something of it.
So Tom, a composer, a creative person, what does creativity mean to you?
Well, it's a word I think I shy away from, because it always makes me think of a sort of self-help book, and I sort of slightly inner cringe, but that's because I'm English. And also creativity is always in inverted commas. It's like, sort of, we British people, we can't say intellectual, can we? So-called intellectual. So it's always in inverted commas creativity. But I think I would see it in its broadest sense, because I think listening to music, being a member of an audience, being a member of a congregation, that's a creative act as well. I think it was Benjamin Britten who said there's fundamentally a triangle between the composer, the performer and the listener. And they all bring something creative to it. And listening itself is a creative act, which is why I think the most dangerous and damaging thing to art of any kind is passivity, where people just let music or whatever art form just flow over them and don't engage with it. As soon as you engage, there's a creative element. So I would definitely see room for the audience to be creative. So I see creativity in its widest sense, and I don't see it as a sort of pyramid where there's the composer being creative and then the performer being slightly less creative, because all they do is fill in, follow the instructions, and then the audience is totally uncreative as they just served it. That's not a very productive or interesting way of looking at what goes on.
So looking forward to the journey.
Very excited, very excited. It's lovely because often you get I get a commission and I often know the players, sometimes I don't, but really it is a matter of sitting alone and writing the piece and then handing it over. And so the most enjoyable part of the process is often the rehearsals, by which time, I haven't really got much to do unless there's a major rewrite. But this time, since so many people are involved right from the beginning, it's lovely just not to be alone at the beginning, because you do slightly go mad, I think, when you're writing, because you're sitting on your own and you wonder really whether what you're doing is of any use to anyone. So it's lovely to feel that one's got a bunch of chums around, really, to sort of bounce ideas off right from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's see where it gets us to.
Yes.
Tom, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.